So, was starting your business more of like an accident, or was it intentional?
It was kind of an accident, really. University was actually a bit of a happy accident. I'd taken on a summer job after leaving school, so leaving my A-levels. Decided at that point, right, I'm just going to kind of take my degree because I'd passed at that point anyway, get an unclassified degree and just start up a business instead. So I did know that I wanted to start a business, even through sort of as a teenager, I knew I wanted to do something. My first side hustle, I was actually buying and selling what they call graded laptops.
Why did you pick coaching as a business?
I had to make a decision there and then. Coaching, it wasn't something which I'd again intentionally necessarily started out doing. The rest, as they say, is history from that point.
Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to the Meet the Great podcast. In this episode, we talk to Robin Waite. Robin Waite is a business coach, author, and speaker renowned for helping entrepreneurs scale their businesses. He has authored books like Take Your Shots, Online Business Startup, and so much more, providing practical advice and strategies for entrepreneurs. Robin's expertise in marketing and business growth, coupled with his engaging workshops and talks, has made him an incredibly sought-after mentor in the business community. Enjoy the video.
Good afternoon, Robin. Thank you for joining us on Meet the Great. Would you be able to introduce yourself to us, please, or anyone who does not know you?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for inviting me onto the show first and foremost. So it's a real pleasure. So I'm Robin Waite. I'm the founder of a coaching business called Fearless Business. We help primarily coaches, consultants, and freelancers to package up their offer, escape trading their time for money. So packaging up their service, learning how to articulate their value around their offer, which is based on the results they deliver for their clients versus necessarily the thing which they actually do, and then also how to sell it. Because once you create a better offer and you make it more expensive, selling it can become quite challenging for many people because they don't have any sort of natural sales training or experience. They just kind of wing it. So that's the long and short of it. We do that through a group accelerator. I have another business as well, which is kind of more of a side hustle, but that's in SEO, so search engine optimization and content marketing. It's a bit more passive, that one. It's quite nice. I have just recently taken on my first employee for that. So Tate runs that business. I have very little to do with it now on a day-to-day basis, which is quite nice. And that supports the coaching practice quite nicely as well.
What was your life like before your various businesses?
So my first business I started in 2004. So I was at university before that. University was actually a bit of a happy accident. So I'd taken on a summer job after leaving school, so leaving my A-levels, and as a systems analyst. So I was essentially building access databases at the time for quite complicated. They were process layouts for medical devices, which is what we used to manufacture. And my job was essentially to replace a process that was very manual. They used to design these product process layouts using CAD, so computer aided design, which is a very slow process. And we had about 18,000 products. So I created a database, an access database, which essentially replaced that CAD system. It made it very drag and drop. So a lot of the products we made were very modular. So they looked very similar, but they might have slightly different cables or different buttons or different diodes on them, but generally they were quite similar. So the system I built, you could drag and drop the different bits of the process into it. And in the space of, it might take you a week to do one CAD layout initially before. In the similar sort of amount of time, we could actually update 3,000 process layouts. So the database, it very quickly made a couple of people redundant as a result of that. So it's quite advanced. You had to really understand what the business was all about and how the products were manufactured. I had to understand about pricing on the components of those products as well. But it was only designed to be a summer job. And then at the end of it, they said, we'd love to keep you on, but we can only afford to keep you on part-time. So I went to my local university's open day and ended up signing up for a business management degree because it was kind of like I had to make a decision there and then. And ended up spending 4 years doing that whilst also working that job full time. And at the end of it, so after the 4 years, I was due to do a dissertation, which I'd written. My dissertation advisor went missing. She disappeared back to Brazil, which is where she came from originally. And the only options, because of the topic I'd chosen around it, I'd actually designed my dissertation around the work that I was doing as a systems analyst. So it's quite advanced as a dissertation topic. Nobody else in the country had the skill set to be able to grade it. So they said the only option was to rewrite it, which I was like, I'm not doing 18,000 words over again. And I only had a month to do it in. So decided at that point, right, I'm just going to kind of take my degree, because I'd passed at that point anyway, get an unclassified degree and just start up a business instead. So the rest, as they say, is history from that point.
Impressive.
All right. So was starting your business more of like an accident, or was it intentional?
It was kind of an accident, really. I mean, I did know that I wanted to start a business, even through sort of as a teenager. I knew I wanted to do something, and I'd had a couple of other, I suppose, side hustles, I suppose you would call them. They weren't really businesses as such, but so at uni, when I was thinking about making a transition and leaving the business I was at, because they for whatever reason, they didn't see it fit to pay me any more money. And I was been there 4 years, very experienced, but on university wages, basically, with student wages, which was negligible. So I started looking at other ways to make money. My first side hustle, I was actually buying and selling what they call graded laptops. So I found a site for these Toshiba laptops where like a disk drive would fail or something like that, and they were plug and play. So you just pop in a new disk drive and it was as good as new. But I was buying them in for about £500, and I found a market to sell, not like a physical market, but as in I used to sell them into construction sites for about 10 times the price. So very quickly, and so I spent a summer doing that, and I probably sold about 40 or 50 of these things, and driving all over the countryside and paying cash as well, which was quite exciting as sort of a 20-ish year old lad. And then all of a sudden the market sort of dropped out at the bottom of that business. So I think lots of people got wind that I was doing it and saw it. And then all of a sudden eBay got flooded with all of these graded laptops. And even then, I mean, you could still make decent enough profits, but when you're used to making sort of 3-4K per laptop, and then all of a sudden you could only make £300 or £400 profit, it didn't seem quite as glamorous or exciting. During that time, one of the guys who I made redundant at the old business that I worked at reached out to me, and he said, "Oh, I'm building computers. I'm building websites and doing this networking thing." And we kept in touch. We were very good friends, despite the fact I helped him lose his job. And he said, "Do you want to start a business?" I was like, "Yeah, sounds interesting." And it happened whilst I was out. I was on holiday, actually, spending some of my gains from selling laptops. I was in holiday in Florida at the time when we had the conversation, and literally over the phone, this is kind of very early days of the internet still. So we're on a phone call, registering a domain, 20 plus years ago for that first business.
Wow.
All right, cool. Okay. So why did you pick coaching as a business compared to other?
Yeah, again, coaching, it wasn't something which I'd, again, intentionally necessarily started out doing. So in 2016, so I'd been running my agency for 12 years. The agency was building web design, branding, and things like that for clients. And after 2016, I got to a point with that business where it was earning me a good living, but I was massively unfulfilled. So I just remember one day waking up. I had a small team of 4 people. We were doing just under 250K's revenue, and we had about 150 odd or so clients, and just got fed up with the late nights. My family, so I just had my first daughter. My second one was on the way, and I just thought, doing all these sort of long hours, late nights with all of this stress, it just didn't feel like it was worth it to me. And your sort of your perspective on life shifts when family come along and things like that. I was quite fortunate around about the same time that I was starting to sort of lose passion for that business. I had an offer from somebody to buy the client base from me and a bit of the IP. So not for very much money, but it was enough to kind of get by for a couple of years without having to stress too much over, having to put food on the table. And after I'd sold it, a couple of other agency owners approached me and said, "Oh, you sold an agency. Do you think you could help us do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool. Buy me a coffee and some cake, and I'll sit down and have a chat with you about, like, tell you how I did it." And that informal mentoring eventually grew and grew, because I then got great results working with those few sort of informal mentoring clients, people then started offering me money to actually coach them more on a more formal basis. So that was 2016. In the first year where I decided, right, this is a thing, I'm going to do it. Well, actually, there's a funny story behind this. Somebody once came into my office when I was about two years into the business, and she said, Robin, I think I'm a better coach than you, but I don't understand why you're so much more successable than me. So a bit of a red flag when somebody comes in and they're sort of comparing themselves to you as a coach. And I don't, it doesn't matter to me. Like, everybody has their own skill sets, right? So a bit of a red flag. But I said, oh, I'm curious, like, how many consultations have you done recently? And so she started counting on one hand. She's like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5. Well, 4 or 5. And I went, oh, well, that's not too bad in the last week, 4 or 5 consultations. She went, oh, no, Robin, it was 4 or 5 in the last year. And I said, well, there's your problem, isn't it? Volume of activity, that's an issue. And I told her all of my statistics from my first year officially coaching. And in that time, I'd set up a networking meeting and done 12 events. I'd set up several marketing events to promote my own personal brand. I'd spoken at somewhere in the order of about 40, 45 other events, sort of in and around Gloucestershire in the local area. I'd sat 125 consultations. I'd enrolled 44 clients. So I'd done this massive volume of work to get just to build momentum to get that business started. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. I think we see a lot of people on social media, Instagram, TikTok, and stuff like that, with these so-called successful, like scaling coaching businesses. And actually, yeah, genuinely, some of them might be incredibly successful, like define that how you will. But what a lot of people don't realize is that's not like an overnight success. Even though I went to 6 figures in my first year as a coach, I'd been running businesses for 12 years before that. So I couldn't have got to 6 figures coaching if I hadn't have had that 12 years worth of grinding it out with my agency. And I think a lot of people sort of underestimate that. And then over the years, I gradually sort of refined it down into figuring out what it is, explicitly that I sort of help people with and what type of clients I get the best results for. And when you kind of know those two things, like who's the one person, what's the one thing I do for one specific client, when you know that, that's when like really interesting things happen, because obviously people then get to know you as an expert. So my niche is pricing. I love pricing, money mindset, and things like that, and having those sorts of conversations with people. And in my view as well, like pricing is the fastest way to grow a business. If you price yourselves too cheaply, you end up burning through all of your capacity, and now you're a busy fool, like not earning the money you want. So the fastest way to grow a business, is to be one of the most expensive in the market.
Would you say seeing so much support encouraged you to write the books that you've got? So I've read one of your books, and it's really good because it teaches you not to sell yourself for cheap, like to know your actual worth, to set the correct prices and charge the right amount.
Yeah, the book's an interesting one. So I think you're referring to Take Your Shot. So
Yeah.
how that came about, one of my first official coaching clients, I did this webinar, which originally was designed for other web design agencies. And I had, because obviously that was my background, that felt like a natural fit at the time. And this is literally about 3 months after I sold the agency. And I had about 50 people on that webinar. It went okay. Didn't blow everybody away, but it was good, my first one. And then about 5 minutes after I'd finished it, I get this phone call from this very excitable guy. And he's like, oh, Robin, that was amazing. Best webinar I've ever seen. Like, love you to help me with my business. Like, how does this work? And I said, oh, cool. Tell me about your web design business. And he went, oh, no, I'm not a web designer. I'm a golf pro. Okay, so how did you get onto this webinar? He's like, oh, my mate builds websites, so he said, oh, you should come and listen to this guy Robin, he sounds interesting. So anyway, so Russ ended up being my first coaching client, and I always kept on telling the story when I was out doing talks and things about Russ and how we packaged up his golf lessons into a series of 5 different products, and how we tripled his prices as well, based on what his hourly rate used to be and what the packages were, and how he got repeat business from it. And eventually I told the story enough times that people were like, you should write a book about this because it's really compelling. So yeah, it's a little bit of a backstory into Take Your Shot and how that came into fruition. But the book is great. So as you know, I gift copies, I give away copies, because one, I genuinely believe, we have a mutual connection in Simon Squibb, for example. So his thing is all about helping people to kind of, break out of the regime and jobs and things like that, and actually start a business up or do something that gives you the freedom you want. Which massively aligns with my values. Coaching can be expensive. Finding good mentors, coaches, courses. Everybody's selling a course these days. So getting good quality like business advice, I don't feel should be it shouldn't be too so hard, like it shouldn't be inaccessible because it's expensive, right? So the book is a really great mechanism when I give it away for people who can't afford coaching and courses, expensive business courses, to actually get started in learning about business and pricing and sales and things like that.
Cool. So was the inspiration for Take Your Shot the same inspiration for writing all your other books?
Yeah, similar. So online business startup, that was the first one I wrote, and I wrote that before I sold my agency. At the time, I was starting to get asked to do a lot more sort of speaking on stage and sort of consulting gigs rather than like the done for you web work and branding work. So it naturally, when you start to be seen as like perceived as an expert, an authority figure, it kind of goes hand in hand that a lot of those authority figures, experts, have books. So I felt it was a natural sort of way just to elevate my own sort of status, personal brand, to write that book. The only challenge was obviously that the book's called Online Business Startup, and it was mostly about how to start a business up in the first instance, but then also how to choose a web designer, how to brief them, how much it should cost, what sort of problems and challenges to experience, and then how to promote your business online.
Yeah.
And actually, as I then started to shift more in the coaching space, talking around sort of productizing services, pricing and sales and things like that, actually Online Business Startup didn't really align with what I was directly helping clients with, because I stepped away from more of that online sort of world, web design, into more practical, tactical business skills. And what was interesting was I used to give that book away as well, but it was with a hybrid publisher. So it was actually quite expensive to give away copies of Online Business Startup. It was about £6 a copy to get printed versions of it, plus then postage on top. So like, and at the time, £10 a lead felt like it was quite an expensive way to get clients, basically. It did work, but I had to have quite a meaty marketing budget for that. So Take Your Shot was in part spreading that startup story about Russ. It was just a nice, easy way to do it, but it was also quite commercial. I think people don't realize this with things like books and other marketing assets. So I knew that I had to bring, in order to be able to give away more copies of it, I needed to bring the print cost down just at a very practical level. And also it needed to be a smaller book, because a smaller book that weighed less also cost less to post, right? So it was actually, there was a very commercial decision-making process behind like why I wrote the book and the format it ended up being in that story. But what it means now is I can comfortably give away 3,000 copies a year without it hurting my business. And I know that people are getting value from that. I get, messages on social now and emails dropping into my inbox almost daily from people saying, "Oh my God, I've read your book. It's transformed my outlook on my business. It's changed my life." And they're really excited to like take some of the insights from it and implement it. I can't physically coach 3,000 people on my own a year, right? So having the book out there doing some of that work is fantastic, knowing that I'm creating that impact.
All right. So, back to an earlier question. Are you able to tell us exactly what the design agency was and how it worked?
Yeah, of course. So when we first started out, we were building websites. We weren't really doing so many branding projects at that point, because I don't think we really felt we were a design house. But an interesting lesson which we had. So we were also doing network installations, so building PCs and networking them up. And there was just one project in our first year of that agency where we just bit off more than we can chew. So I think we ended up building, it was something like 25 or 30 PCs to go in and a server to go into this business. And I drive past the business quite regularly. It's because it's local to me as well. So it always makes me sort of chuckle when I think back to this like 20 years ago. And the idea was that we would install that system over a weekend, and they'd come back in and have this brand new system. And I think we were probably about 2 hours into the installation on the Saturday when I was like, Caleb, my business partner, this is not going to work, Caleb. We're not going to get this done. Thankfully, and this is where this is a really valuable lesson as a business owner. I've never really let pride get in my way of stuff. Like for me, it's always been about delivering the best possible outcome for clients. And I randomly, a couple of weeks before, I'd met this company that did like big, like really large scale network installations and IT infrastructure. And I picked up the phone to them and I was like, we need help. Like we've really effed this up. Like we've over promised. We're clearly going to under deliver. We need your help getting this over the line. And they came in, they got the project rolling. It ended up taking the full week to get everything installed, but they took it over, basically bought the project office, which was good. So we didn't lose out financially. But I remember the boss, the guy who'd actually booked the job with us, he just said, look, I'm so grateful for your honesty in immediately telling us that you've bitten off more than you can chew. He said, it was my biggest fear that this might happen because you're a small business, but I just appreciate the fact that you're honest and we were able to put a solution in place. But what that meant was I very much learned at that point, thankfully very early, to stay in your lane. And we were brilliant at websites. That's what we were best at. So just for local businesses, building small brochure style websites, bit of search engine optimization to get, so once we built the site, at least get it found in Google, and let's start to figure out how we can get some leads through to those sites. And then eventually we pivoted as well into doing more branding projects. So we got the design skills. We started to get into logo design and the value of branding and stuff like that. Again, which I think a lot of business owners overlook. Like you can see the logo on the screen behind me. I'm very proud of like the Fearless Business brand. It really reflects like who I am as an identity, and I get so many positive comments about it. So it was a real pleasure, like in the agency days, of being able to help clients on that journey. But where our superpower, though, or my superpower, I don't like it when things take a long time. I'm very patient. But if there's a faster, more efficient way around things to solve a problem, like in my systems analysis days, then let's take that route. There are certain things which take longer. Partnerships, for example, take a long time to nurture them, and you have to be incredibly patient. But one of the things we did, so take branding, for example, like a logo design process, it can take like 2 or 3 months worth of work backwards and forwards between you and a client, finagling like designs and stuff like that. It's like, it's got to be a better way than this, like design agency ping pong. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could build a brand in a day? And my business partner's like, WTF, Robin, that's stupid. Nobody's ever done that. Like, why would we do that? And so a client came along on like a Tuesday, said, we've got a new product launching next Monday and we need a brand for it. We need it now. And like our old way just wouldn't have worked. And I said, well, we've got a designer in on Thursday. Like we could probably knock this out in a day. I think I've got a process for it. Would you be up for that? And he was like, well, yeah, but it sounds expensive. And I said, yeah, it probably is expensive. So we went from doing like £50 an hour type design work. And for that first project, we charged £1,800 for a day's work, which back then was incredible. It's like we went from doing sort of 400, 450 a day rate to like 4 times that. And a guy came in at like 9. He left eventually at 6:30. He left with his logo, 2-page style guide. He's really happy. Bit of finessing afterwards just to tidy it up, but we got it over the line. And so that became our hero product, our signature product that everybody knew us for. And I remember there was also another time, and this is leads into the pricing conversation as well, because if somebody wants something enough and you're their guy that they want you to do the thing, I got a call from my mentor and said, oh, Rob, I've got this software business up in York. They want you to get up there tomorrow, deliver one of your one-day branding workshops, and there's going to be 23 people in the room. And I was like, screw that. I'm in Gloucestershire. It's like 5 hours driving up to York to do something which I was like, for 1,800 quid, it's just really not worth it. So I said, Nick, thanks for thinking of me, but no thanks. Don't want to do it. It's just not in my wheelhouse. He went, everybody has their price, Robin. I was like, interesting. He said, leave it with me. And I got a phone call about 10 minutes later at would you be willing to go up there for £18,000? And I was like, whoa, yep. In fact, I was already in the car on the M5 driving up there, and before I'd even arrived in York, the money had hit my bank account, so they paid in full in advance. And it was a fun, really fun day, challenging day. There's 23 people in the room who were all inputting their ideas into this new software business they're building. But again, we got it over the line. They're really pleased with the logo. They handed it off to an internal designer as well. So after, it was literally like a product. You buy it, you deliver it, you get paid, it's done. Like it, and that was it. It was really simple. But I'm not a designer. I like designing the business side of things. I like the strategy and the numbers behind a business and things like that. But like I'm not naturally a designer. So that, again, I think that's why that business perhaps wasn't the best fit longer term.
By the story then, so obviously collaboration works really well. So I'm glad that, it ended up working well for you. And obviously you're quite well known on social media as well. So that's incredible. So you've worked really hard, and yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I say well known on social, probably. I mean, my audiences are small compared to some people, but I would say when my audience is at its strongest is just because I've spent time investing in people who've come into my world, like building those relationships. And one of the things I've noticed is it's like a really interesting time. I sound like a dinosaur, 20 years, it's only 20 years, right? I've been in business, but one of the things I've noticed about doing business in 2024 is that there's a lot of BS, like I hate to say it, and there's a lot of people who are they'll climb over others to get their success. And I've watched it from the outside where people have climbed over others and then they've come back down, and it ends up ultimately being with quite a big bump, because if you piss people off on the way up, they're not gonna have time for you, when you slide back down that ladder. So it's always been really important to me to have that, just be really supportive of everybody who comes into my world, not be like so cocky that any podcast is like beneath me. Like I will, anybody who wants to know more about business, I will always make time for. And I know that there are people out there who, if your podcast doesn't have more than 10,000 subscribers, they won't go on it. If you don't have 100,000 followers on Instagram, they won't run a partnership with you. That's just completely the wrong way to work, because so many times there are people who you turn down those opportunities, and a year or two later they've built the following, or they've got the number one podcast, or they've got whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like you lose out on so much. The other thing as well is, like, I think quite often we're so it's rammed down our throats these days, like pictures of Lamborghinis and flashing cash and smart, shiny watches, and all of these so-called influencers who are doing really well. And I think people, like, they want to aspire to that, but what it does is it also means that they're too proud to just earn £10.
Yeah.
Like to go out and wash a car and earn £10, or that they think that they need, like, thinking about like something like a car washing business. I'm not sure this is the best example. We'll see where we go with this, but they think that what they need is they need to have all of the kit. They've got to have the clothes, the outfit, the brand, the website, all of the fancy car cleaning kit, the pressure washer, all of the fancy soaps and detailing, the polishing thing, and just to start a business. It's like, no, like, if you go around an estate and there's nice cars parked, two nice cars parked on, a majority of the driveways, don't be so proud to not go and knock on that door and say, listen, I'm starting up a car washing business. I noticed you got two cars here, look a bit dirty. Is there any chance I could wash them? And the bit which trips people up is they're like, because the owner will look at you and go, well, where's your bucket and sponge? And they're like, well, I'm guessing you clean your car sometimes. Could I just borrow I'm starting up. Could I just borrow your bucket and sponge? And not demand like 50 quid for washing those cars. Ask them how much they'd be willing to pay for that. But I think we're so sold on shiny these days that we lose pride in ourselves to just, accept £10. Like, if your goal's like to get to £1,000 a month business, well, you're £10 closer if you just start out, and push your pride to one side for a bit.
Yeah, and another problem with the social media pride as well. People focus on the shiny side and the not the so shiny side. So they think that you can just get there without any form of challenges. They think you can achieve it just like that, but that's not reality.
No, and you know that even starting up a podcast comes with its challenges. But see, I've quietly watched the podcast that you've grown like from the sidelines, since we got in touch, and you're taking a great approach to it, which is like essentially every episode we do, let's make it just ever so slightly better. Get some better, get a slightly better microphone. Let's get a slightly better piece of kit, or let's tweak the format slightly to. And that's the best way to work, like not being prepared to sort of fail at something. Yeah, I mean, let's face it, there's not a lot that can go wrong with running a podcast, but sometimes like the concepts or ideas or things like that, or even the guests that you get on there could be challenging or problematic. But it's being willing to sort of face those head on and actually, because you've got a vision in mind for what you want to create here.
Yeah.
All right. So when you go on social media or things like that, did you know how you can actually sift out all of the kind of BS guides on success?
It's taken a long time to get really to spot them, and there's obvious signs. So the most obvious ones is when they slide into your direct messages and they're like, "Oh, I've got something I want to run by you," and you're like, "Right, we know we're straight into a pitch here." There's a great meme. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's where there's two Spider-Men both doing the spider web at each other. They're like, shooting spider webs at each other. So quite often when I see people who are like about to pitch me, I'll send them that meme to say that I know what your game is. Like, I'm in the world of business online. I have been for 20 years. So, and the thing is like the way to sort of overcome that is quite simple. Like if you're growing a business and you want to be able to, I got no problem with people dropping into my DMs, like none at all. Like we're all trying to grow businesses here, right? So do what you've got to do. That's fine. But something there was a guy who slid into my DMs on Twitter. And I instantly knew he was going to pitch me. And he did it without asking my permission. So the first thing you do is you ask for somebody's permission. So I might drop into your DMs, Carl. I'll say something like, "Hey, Carl, listen, I'm a web designer. I noticed you've got a website. I noticed there was like 3 errors which might be slowing it down. Could I just send you a report which I've created for that, or create just a short Loom video and explain those 3 things to you?" So we do it from a permission basis.
Yeah.
Carl, you're a good guy, so you probably write back and say, "Oh yeah, that's really kind, Robin. Thank you for offering that." And then you do the video, but it's value based and there's no sales pitch. And then if Carl, if you then decide, "Oh, actually, this Robin guy seems legit. He's given me some value here, some things I could change on my website or whatever," then you've now got a choice. You can come back to me or not. And I have to respect that. I think there's a lot of people on there who are just out there to line their own pockets, pay for their mortgage, which I get, put food on the table, which I get. But and I can only say this out of earshot of Mrs. Waite, but I would rather be poor, homeless, and destitute than take somebody's money when it's just not best fit. 90% of the internet marketers you see out there selling something are selling it just to make themselves money, and that's not ethical in my view. You sell something to somebody because you can genuinely help them, you can create great results for them, and it has to be fair value exchange. Don't get me wrong, because they've got to pay. You can't just give this stuff away for free. They've got to pay for it, right? But you only sell it to them if it's like best fit, right client. You can get great results to them. You love working with that client, and they're going to see some kind of a return on investment from it.
All right. So back to the whole thing of you running Fearless Business. What have been some of the main struggles with it?
Really great question. Honestly, running a business. So my girls are now 10 and 7, so they've been around for the entirety of Fearless Business. And I've really struggled over the years with, like full disclosure, I've had one bout of diagnosed depression in my lifetime before I met my wife. I've had another episode of depression whilst I've been with it's not because of my wife. I should just emphasize that, by the way, just to make it really clear to everybody. But whilst I was with her, but it was undiagnosed, but a similar sort of symptoms, but I've been through it. Running a business as a parent is incredibly challenging because, like, all of a sudden now you're responsible for like two little people who need feeding and they need taken to school and they need to go to swimming lessons and they need everything. They need putting to bed at night and washing, and in the morning making their breakfast and so it's like all of a sudden you go from having like one job, which takes up a lot of time and energy, to now having two jobs because it bookends your day job, if that makes sense, with all the responsibilities there. And then also like the responsibilities as a husband and a friend and a son and everything else, a brother. So getting that balance right, like even for me as a coach, a business coach, there might be people who are going, oh, well, that's totally incongruent. Like, you're a business coach, you should have everything nailed and later. No, I'm still human. I'm not immune to life, right? I'm not immune to like getting tired and being a bit frazzled and dropping the ball from time to time, right? I'm very organized, like with my business, and I get a shit ton of stuff done, with my days, my time that I've got during my days. But I've ended up like now where I've got to a point. I'm only 42, but because of my responsibilities, I can't just come out and knock out another 4 hours worth of work of an evening. I'm dad, right? From 4 o'clock, through to 9 o'clock, when they eventually sort of put their heads down and maybe start to think about going to sleep, like my time is taken out, So for me, there was a point where I wanted to try and push through that. And then in the end, I let go. And I thought, wouldn't it be great though, if I could get somewhere close to my revenue I made in my agency on my own, but working within the hours that I've got. And that forced me at that point to figure out how to work a bit smarter, what partnerships I sort of wanted to invest my time in, how to market my business and stuff like that. But yeah, running a business as a parent is bloody hard work. And I think people underestimate that. And there are some people who make it look super easy. And I don't know how they do it. It's hard. I'm tired.
Honestly, man, that's amazing. Alright, so how do you actually like? How do you balance business and your family in the same like day?
Must be really difficult, right?
Yeah.
It is. It's all about setting boundaries for yourself. So, and there are certain things which are non-negotiable. So I had to decide, and the word decide is quite a powerful word because it includes the word side, which means when you choose something, when you decide something, one thing has to be killed off in favor of another thing. So that point of letting go was like, right, I might not right now be able to build £1 million a year coaching business, let's say, for example, if it's not what I want, but just as a simple example. But what's more important to me is getting along to my kids' sports day or going to the local cathedral to listen to one of them do a recital, on a cornet, and things like that. And those have to be non-negotiables. There's nothing that can you have to see clients and coach. I have to see clients and coaching work and my partnerships as being less important than that stuff. And that's where the business takes a back seat. And because I've always run businesses for 20 years, that's really hard. My whole muscle memory is predicated on like sales and clients and partnerships and speaking and books and stuff like that. And that's kind of a lot of the time all I think about. One big shift for me was because I kind of, you would like the normal week looks like Monday to Friday. It's like the school week, right? The working week. And then you get to the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, you're in full on like business and dadding mode during the week. And then you're like 2 days of full on family mode. And I find that transition very difficult. And I work so I'm in the little studio, which I built when we first moved here. My house is 20 meters away over there. And I have to switch from business coach into dad when I walk through the threshold. So what I've done over the last year and a half now is I take Fridays off. So I've made life even harder for myself business-wise, fewer hours, but I take Fridays off to ease myself into that weekend so that I can be hopefully more present for my wife and kids, on a Saturday morning. What's interesting as a natural byproduct of that time off has enabled me to have more me time, like thinking time, whether it's I choose to use that for the business or just generally just my own self-care. I might go and get a massage at the local spa, or go and get my haircut or something on that Friday. So I do like to keep busy. But what's remarkable is like the ideas, the creativity and the ideas have started to come back. So I have more time to just come up with fun stuff to do for my business, like on a Friday. And by Saturday morning, because I've now had a complete break from everything, I'm like, I'm firing and getting all these like ideas. So again, that's quite hard because I have to like temper that, jump onto to-do list on my phone and make a load of notes, like, whilst I'm out via shot of the kids. And then, it's like, right, okay, I've made a note of that. We can put it down. And now, right, I'm going to make a choice now to focus on the kids and stuff.
So family takes priority as always. Yeah.
It has to, but it's
Yeah.
hard. It's a really tough. It's tough to get the balance right. And I know people always talk about work-life balance, but I actually believe that it should just be balance, right? So again, as an example, I'll keep this brief because I know time's marching on. But we went to, very fortunate, saved up for a long time. We went to Disney in Florida over Easter, and I had my side business was starting to sort of really take off. And thankfully, because of the time zone difference, I was waking up at sort of 4 or 5 a.m. So I was getting up, doing 2 or 3 hours work, clearing the decks, and then I could be full gas in the business. But the nice thing was I was able to mix a bit of work with obviously having an amazing time, like where we were, and neither kind of impacted on each other. So it is possible. Whether I would choose to do that as like a lifestyle, like, have it that way. I know people are digital nomads and people like that travel and they have their families with them and stuff. Not sure I could necessarily do it full time, but it worked for that period of time, that 2 weeks we were out there, really well. So it can be done. But there's a lot of, you've got to be very flexible, I think, as a business owner to kind of make the both work together.
Yeah.
Right.
You're doing really well at it. So
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. So honestly, I think we are done here. Yeah, it's been an absolutely amazing interview.
thank you for your time, Robin. We both
Thank you very
really
much.
appreciate it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
my pleasure.
Thank
Did you
you.
want to, because obviously one of the things which I do as well is obviously giving the books away.
Yeah.
You're welcome to add the link into the podcast show notes as well.
Of course.
I think you've got that already. So
Yeah, of course.
but yeah, anybody who wants a free signed copy of Take Your Shot, I'm more than happy to send those out.
Yeah, we'll put it in there.
All right. Anyway,
Thank you.
thanks very much for your time.
Awesome. It was a real pleasure. Thanks, chaps. So it's nice to meet you, Kian, as well. I know, Carl, we've had a couple of sort of interactions behind the scenes as well, but Kian, it's nice to finally meet you.
Nice to meet
I
you.
do want to thank you personally as well, Robin, for obviously the microphone and the camera and just supporting it within the Simon community. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. Happy to help. I'm glad that the mic and the kit's gone to like a good home as well. So yeah, it's a pleasure, honestly. And let me know if there's anything I can do to sort of help you out with this at all. Just reach out, just message. Nothing's an imposition. So just ask.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you very much. All right.
Awesome.
Have a good day, and I hope your kids and your family have a good day as well. And you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you both. You too. Take care.
See you both.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye. Have a good day. Thank you.